Kendall. My channel is Bless This Mess. And this is my first time ever making a YouTube video. I've made a couple videos on Facebook and people seem to really like them. So I kind of just wanted to try this out and see what happens. I'm not looking to gain a bunch of followers. I'm not looking for clout or attention or anything like that. I kind of just want to start sharing bits and pieces of my story in the hopes of, just touching someone. Just even one person would mean the world to me. God calls us to be bold in our faith and in our stories of salvation. And so that is what I aim to do. This is kind of awkward for me because I've made, like I said, a couple of videos and posted on Facebook, but I've never sat in front of a camera this officially, I guess, and made a video. And by officially, I mean I'm literally in my bathroom right now, and I'm using a lamp for a light, and I am recording this on my webcam. But that is the most official thing I've done so far. So in this first video, I kind of just want to talk about what I'm going to be doing on this channel, what I'm going to be discussing, and just kind of share a little bit of the beginning of my story. Not too much, but just kind of give you the Cliff Notes version, if you will, of me. So I am married, I have a wonderful husband, and I have 3 kids. They never knew about God prior to the last 6-7 months. I used to go to church as a child, as in like youth age. So from like 6th grade up until 9th grade I went to church. But I mostly just went for friends. It was never about God for me. So really I never knew God, right? And you'll have to forgive me, I'm going to be looking down because I have notes and things, because I don't want to forget anything to say. And I tend to ramble and kind of go on tangents, so I kind of want to make sure I stay on topic and on subject. So first, before I say anything else, I want to say thank you to anybody who does watch this video. All 3 of you who are going to watch this, I really do appreciate it. And like I said, as much as this is to hopefully help someone or touch someone or just plant that seed in someone's heart about God, it's about me being able to get my story out there, and it's kind of cathartic for me, I think, because I've never been able to kind of speak publicly about anything that's happened in my life. And so I think it's important to explain all those things because it's kind of all what led me to where I am now. So we'll just go into like how my life was before Christ. So like I said, without going into too much detail, this is just the Cliff Notes version. I have been through a lot in my life. Nothing ever came easy for me by any means. I had a good childhood up until my preteen years. Life at home got pretty rough. My mom had some issues with addiction and things like that. So it was a pretty toxic relationship between me and her. So from a young age, I kind of started dealing with some of the, more adult aspects of life that someone my age never should have been dealing with. Thankfully I made it through my teenage years literally by the grace of God. I didn't know that at the time, but that's what it was. When I was 19, I met my daughter. I met her father, and we were in a relationship for about 4 years or so, and that was a toxic, abusive relationship, and I'm not going to go into detail about that, but just trust me when I say it was very toxic and abusive in every way. So that really did a real number on me, especially considering everything I had already been through the previous 10 years. Essentially I had been in survival mode for a really long time. So, and it was kind of one of those situations with him where it was, in the beginning, he showed me the love that I never really got. And so that's what drew me in. And you know how the story is old as time. You know, they draw you in and then they got you, you know. So anyway, the only wonderful, greatest gift from God that came from that relationship was my daughter. She's 10 years old, and she saved my life at that point in my life. She did. She is amazing. She's beautiful. She is everything good from me and from her dad. And you know, she's talented and she's smart and she loves horses, and she is just amazing. The best child. She really is. I love her so much. So finally, after years of abuse, I decided it was time to leave. My daughter was getting older. I believe she was about to turn 2 when I left her dad. So I wanted to get out of there before she was old enough to remember any of the things that she saw. So thankfully, again, by the grace of God, I didn't know it at the time, but it was by the grace of God that I got out of that relationship alive and, you know, unscathed, essentially, in the grand scheme of things, and so did my daughter. So we left. Fast forward about a year, I meet Chris. I meet my wonderful, amazing husband. And man, he just swept me off my feet from the moment I met him. And I'm going to try not to get emotional in this video. This is the first video I'm posting, so I don't want it to be like over dramatic, but some of these things are emotional for me, because especially now when I look back and I realize that God was walking with me hand in hand through all of it. And I just didn't know that then. But so I meet him, and like I said, he swept me off my feet. He was good to me. He was good to my daughter, and we have been together ever since. 8 years now we've been together. In December of 2018, I had my son. He is so smart. He really is. He's almost like, not even almost, he is genius level smart. He amazes me every single day. He is autistic. He's on the autism spectrum, but that, you know, that means nothing. I mean, his brain just thinks a little bit differently than ours does, and that's totally fine. And his brain, man, when I tell you that kid's brain thinks, it's like photographic memory. It's like nothing I've ever seen. So he truly, he's a miracle. He is. He is amazing. He, like I said, he loves math. He loves geography. He loves Minecraft, of course. I mean, what 6-year-old kid doesn't? But he just loves so many different things. And his smile is contagious. And he is just, he's the light of my life. I love him. I love him so much. So I had him in December 2018. And after I had him, for the next, up until 2023, I did not know at the time, because, you know, everything is in hindsight, right? I dealt with a lot of postpartum depression. I think my PTSD had kind of come out full force at that point, because I was in a safe space, the safest space I had ever been in, truly, in my entire life at that point. And, you know, it was affecting me. The things I had been through were affecting me, and I on a subconscious level, and I didn't know it. I was kind of in a funk for a good while there, a few years. And it was like I was functioning, but again, I was in survival mode. Like I said, not to go into too much detail, but, you know, I still had a lot going on, you know, trying to raise 2 kids, run a family. My mom, you know, she was like a 3rd child at that point, because after years of addiction and brain damage from overdoses and things of that nature, she kind of like became a child herself in a way. She couldn't really make decisions for herself anymore. She had no will to better herself. It was really, really, really bad. So she kind of depended on me for everything, and that really took a toll. And she always kind of did that. Even when I was a teenager, I've always been like, I was always like her parent. So that was taking a toll. There was just numerous things happening in my life at that point, that even though I was in a safe, happy space, I was happy with my, happy with my husband, happy with my family, things were still affecting me, So, so that, I was always searching for the answer, right? I was always searching for the thing that was gonna fix my problems and make me happy. And I always looked for them in all the wrong things. All the wrong things that people look for them in. Things that are not good for you. Those are the first things people tend to go towards because they make you feel good, right? But they don't fix the problem. They just mask it and create another problem, right? So, I tried like witchcraft, like not serious witchcraft, but like I don't even know what you call it really, like crystals and little like tincture jars of spells and oils and whatever. I didn't even know what I was doing, okay? I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just lighting candles and dumping some sage in a bottle and calling it a spell, right? Thinking that was gonna help. It's funny now looking back on like how silly that is, but like at the time I truly thought that was like the answer, you know what I mean? That was gonna help me. That was gonna be the thing that was like, okay, this is it. Like, this is the true way of the world, I guess. Of course it wasn't. So let's see. After like I had my son, the next 4-ish years, like I said, I was struggling. Fast forward to 2023. In April of 2023, my mom passed away. And that was, and mind you, I'm just going to give you this kind of warning now, content warning, I guess, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to be fully transparent in every video that I make. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. I'm not going to try to make things sound better than they were. I'm not going to hide my feelings, and I'm not going to lie about my feelings or how I felt about situations or how I felt about people, how I felt about God, or any of it. I'm just not going to do it because I believe that is doing not only me a disservice, but anyone else watching this video a disservice, because the whole point of this is for people to hopefully watch it and relate, and sometimes it's hard for us to be honest with ourselves, much less honest with the public, anyone who could be watching this. So that is my disclaimer. So when my mom passed away, I was pretty much the only, not pretty much, I was the only one there with her. So she had, like I said, she had lots of health issues over the years because of her addiction and her unhealthy living habits and depression and just, all kinds of things. So she ended up with cirrhosis of the liver. And this was from, like I said, drinking, drugs. She also had fatty liver. So all those things combined, just, her body couldn't hold on anymore. So after about a month of like being in the hospital, she did get on the liver transplant list, but unfortunately she was not a candidate for that. So she did pass away in April of 2023. So so when she passed away, of course, it hurt, right? She was my mother. She created me. She birthed me. She is I am part of her DNA. And so it did hurt, and it broke my heart. But at the same time, and like I said, I'm going to be honest about my feelings. You can always count on that. And you can ask anybody in real life that same question. Sometimes I am too honest about my feelings, but I think it's important. Nonetheless, it was almost a relief. A relief in the way of I felt like it was a burden lifted off my shoulders. It was a lot to have to make every decision for, a 55-year-old woman who is supposed to help me make decisions, right? She was my mom. That's what she was supposed to help me do. And by decisions, I don't mean small things like, oh, should I buy this coffee table or this couch? I mean, like, where am I going to live type decisions. I have nowhere to go. Where am I going to go? Big decisions that were left on my shoulders. So it was almost a relief. And I skipped ahead a little bit, and I did forget to mention, and this is not intentional. I just forgot to mention it, honestly and truly. In, I believe it was September of 2019, I have a sister, Abby, and she is 15 years old now. But in September of 2019, an incident happened with my mom, and Abby came to live with us. And she had kind of been living with us on and off for a few years before that. So I kind of always knew that she would end up with us anyway. But she officially came to live with us full time in September of 2019. And I was so thankful for that. I was thankful to get her out of the environment that she had been in. I was thankful that I knew she was going to be safe. I knew she was going to be protected. And I was just happy to have my baby sister with me all the time, She is amazing. She actually just got baptized today. The day that I'm making this video, she got baptized. And that was something to see. It took her a little bit longer to get ready for that, and that's okay. Me and my husband and my daughter Caroline, we got baptized 2 months ago. So and I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna force anybody to get baptized, right? I'm not gonna force anybody to get saved. Y'all got to do this on your own time, because it was all brand new to us, right? And I'll get into the story of how it came about and how God came into our family and our lives. But she came to live with us, and that was the greatest blessing. She is amazing. She can play the drums. I mean, she taught herself how to do this. It's unbelievable. This child is unbelievable. She is so musically talented. She's so smart. She goes to early college, so she will graduate high school with an associate's degree. She's unbelievably smart. She has an unbelievable, adult head on her shoulders. And I know that some of that comes from, the way she might have been raised. But truly thank God she used it for good. And she's like an old soul. She does, she'll come home and tell me about, the things girls in her class are upset about, or, fighting over boys. And she's like, Kendall, they're so stupid. How do they not see that this boy is playing them? How is it not obvious? So she's too smart. I love it. I never have to worry about her. And, most 15-year-old girls, you got to keep a close eye on them. I trust her. I mean, God, I've been blessed with her. I'm telling you, she's an angel. She's an angel. So she came to live with us. So I missed that part. So I just wanted to mention that because it's important, obviously, because I said I have 3 kids, and I do consider her one of my kids. So after my mom passed away, I don't know what it was. Something in me changed. I think maybe it was the burden lifted off of my shoulders. I think that for those previous 4 years that I said, you know, I had been struggling, and I was dealing with like postpartum depression and just PTSD, and but I think when she passed away in some kind of sick way, like it lifted a burden off my shoulders, and somehow, some way, my brain just like snapped back into reality. And it was like, who was I the last 4 years? You know what I mean? It was like, who was that person? What was I doing? Like, it's like I just snapped back into myself that quick. And so life started getting good, you know what I mean? Obviously things happen, and we all go through trials and tribulations, and we all have struggles, and you know, I still have struggles. Like we're that's human, right? We're human. That's what happens. You know, sometimes are rough, but I've been happy ever since then. And so so it's like I said, that was 2023. So fast forward to now, 2025. Let's see, it's about 6 months ago, so like February, somewhere around there, my husband called me one day, and at this point, we had been going through a bit of a rough patch. Nothing like, we weren't about to, you know, divorce and leave each other and separate or anything like that. Just a rough patch, as people have that's been together as long as we have, right? So we were, you know, talking about like maybe doing some counseling, or you know, just something just to kind of help us through it. And so my husband called me one day and was like, hey, do you want to go to church? And mind you, church, religion, God, Jesus, none of it had been a part of our lives at all, in any capacity, the whole time we'd been together. It hadn't been a part of my life since I was like 14. My children didn't know about God. It was just not something. I didn't believe in God. To be honest, like I said, I'm going to be honest about my feelings. I didn't believe in God. I questioned God. I couldn't understand God. I couldn't understand why a loving God would, you know, do some of the things that God did. It made absolutely no logical sense to me, and I made that known. I did. I made that known. And I do regret that now, knowing what I know, but, you know, you only know what you know at the time, right? So he called me one day and asked, did I want to go to church? And I said, hell no. I really did. I said, hell no. Like, I couldn't even believe he asked me that, you know, because me going to church, like, I probably burst in flames walking in the door, you know what I mean? I told him no, and that was that. He was like, okay, you know, that's fine. I just figured I'd ask, and that was that. But after that moment, I don't know what it was, but he planted a seed in my heart. And it's funny looking back on the way things happen and the way things come about, because it's the smallest things like that that just can change your life, right? And so a phone call from my husband during a rough time in our lives, asking did I want to go to church, changed my life. And he knows this, but I'm going to always be grateful to him for that, because he truly, like, he gave me the greatest gift, and that was the seed of God, planting that seed. And it was up to me to water it at that point, and so I did. I just kind of did some research. I started Googling stuff, like talking about it. Me and him started talking about it a little bit, and I just got interested. I started reading just like little bits of the Bible, not a lot, but just the parts where, you know, some of the questions I had were being answered. And the more I looked into it, the more I could feel something calling me towards it, right? And like at the time, I didn't know that that was the Holy Spirit. I didn't even know what the Holy Spirit actually was. I thought it was just something people said. I thought, you know, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, the Trinity. You know, I didn't know it was like an actual thing. But so then we had also been looking for like more more like, or not more, less risque content to watch, I guess you should say. Like, we were just tired of watching shows that were overly sexualized, like almost like the P word. It's just annoying. Like, neither one of us wanted to see that, So somehow we came across the show The Chosen. And I know there is mixed opinions about that show, and that's fine. Everybody's allowed their opinion. And I do know that it is not fully biblically accurate. It has been changed and dramatized in certain areas, and some people take offense to that, which I understand, because the Bible is the Bible. That's the word, that's the truth, and it should not be changed or altered, and it definitely should not be sugarcoated. And they did do that in that show. Mind you, I did not know this at the time. At the time, I just thought it was going to be a good show to watch to learn about Jesus. I wasn't aware that wasn't what was happening in the Bible. To me, that was what it was, So we watched it, and that was kind of the thing that did it for me. That show, no matter, people can say whatever they want about it, okay? I understand and I agree with those opinions, the negative opinions, but I can tell you right now, if I had not watched that show, I do not think that I would have decided to go to church. I do not think that I would have been saved. I do not think I would have found God. I do not think I would have been baptized. And if I had, it would have taken a lot longer. Because I never understood Jesus. I never knew Jesus. I never knew much about him at all, So watching that show made me truly understand how loving our God is, how loving Jesus is, how much he cares for us, what he did for us, right? He paid the ultimate price for us so we could live, so we could have eternal salvation, so we could go to heaven. He paid the ultimate cost for me, for you, for every human being on this planet. Good, bad, ugly. He did it for all of us. And that show really put that into perspective for me. It made me go from seeing God as like this vengeful, being full of wrath, right? To seeing him as what he is, a loving, caring God. And that show did that for me. So like I said, I understand there's opinions about that show, and that's fine. And now, knowing what I know, I can see that. But at the time, that show, the roots started taking plant because of that show. We had the seed planted by my husband. I had the research I was doing, was the watering, every day. And then that show was little blooms starting to form, the roots taking hold, right? And so, me and my husband, we really seriously started talking about going to church at that point, because it had an effect on him too. And mind you, the whole time that I'm going through this, my husband is also going through this. And I'm not going to speak for him, because he has his own journey and his own story. And maybe one day, I'll get him on here to tell that. But it's not my place to do it. But we were going through this at the same time together. So we decided to look for a church. And so growing up, my grandparents lived in a certain part of town, and I'd stayed with them all the time. I was with them more than I was with my parents as a younger child, right? And so I remember the way we went to their house, it was a church that we passed every time. And for some reason, that church just popped in my head when we were looking for churches. I don't know why, can't explain it. I thought about that church. I didn't even know the name of the church. I had no idea. I literally remembered, I literally remembered where it was in the building. So I looked it up, and I was like, me and my husband went on the website, and the pastor and his wife had made a video on there, just kind of, doing what I'm doing now, giving like the Cliff Notes version of their story. And we watched it and we were like, this is it. This is where we're going. We just knew. When you know, you know. God spoke to us and said, this is where you need to be. God spoke to me and told me, you remember that church you passed when you were a kid? That's where you're meant to be. So we went on a Sunday, and in my next video I'll kind of explain what happened from there. It's a beautiful story that is still unfolding as we speak. Like I said, this has only been 6 months. So I guess it's just my kind of little introduction video that was very long-winded, and I hope makes sense. But so like I said, in my next video I'll kind of just elaborate a little bit more on where I'm at now and how I got here, and then in the future I'll just be kind of making videos on whatever I want to make them on. I really don't have a certain theme for this channel. I mean, obviously it's going to be Christ-centered, but I'll be discussing different things. So thank you for watching. Hopefully, if you made it this far in the video, leave me a white heart emoji in the comments so I know that you watched it. Y'all have a good day.